Welcome to Athletes on Balance, where we talk to athletes, coaches, and experts about mental health in sports. This is a stigma-free zone for inner thoughts and outer conversations. We're helping athletes and anyone with mental health challenges perform at their best, on and off the field.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Athletes on Balance. I'm your host, Walt, the founder and CEO of On Balance Health. Today, I'm joined by former University of Alabama football player Jimmy Johns. As a high school quarterback, Jimmy was one of the top college recruits in his home state of Mississippi. During his senior year in 2004, he was named Mr. Football, accounted for 44 total touchdowns, and led his high school team, Brookhaven, to a state championship. He would go on to play football at Alabama, where he was primarily a running back. In 2006, he was named the Crimson Tide's Special Teams Player of the Year. Towards the end of his career, Jimmy switched over to linebacker. While at Alabama, he was affected by episodes of depression at various levels, not understanding why he was having these feelings of doubt and hopelessness. Over time, with educating himself on mental health causes and symptoms, Jimmy worked hard to build his life back together again, understand how to treat and cope with these issues, and ultimately turned his life around. This past May, at the age of 35, Jimmy earned his bachelor's degree from Alabama, a remarkable accomplishment to finish what he started. While balancing his education towards a degree, he has worked in retail corporate management, and now with his degree, he is exploring new opportunities in his professional career. Doors are certainly opening up for him. I've talked about this before. This is a cause that is near to me, as I have managed a bipolar disorder for over 4 decades in my business life, and looking back perhaps since my early days as a quarterback at Ohio State and the University of Georgia. I've been looking forward to this conversation with Jimmy. His redemption story is a powerful one. Jimmy, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, man.
Good to see you. Good to see you. I understand that you were especially close to your grandfather, and he meant a great deal to you. You understandably battled a strong sense of loss following his death in 2006. Can you tell us what you went through from a mental perspective after he had passed?
Yeah, just kind of set the background. My grandfather is the one that raised me. I grew up grew up in southern Mississippi with my grandfather. He had 9 kids. My mom was the oldest, and they kind of raised us. We grew up, kind of poor. Didn't have running water. Had an artesian well. I saw my grandmother, grow a garden. Every morning we would wake up and cut poke wood from the age of 11. So my grandfather, he instilled the values in me of hard work. He was always there for me. All the way until I got to college, my sophomore year in college. That's when he passed. And at that age, you think about someone passing, you think your grandfather, you think that he passed of old age or something like that. He had a car accident, so it was sudden. It was sudden loss. And
you were a sophomore then, Jimmy?
Going into my yes. Well, I was a sophomore going to my junior year.
Yeah.
Of college. Yeah. And that's when things kind of started going haywire, because he was that physical physical person that could, help me with the choices and decisions that I make daily. Someone I can lean on. Someone tell me, hey boy, you're wrong, or get a bet on you, or just keep you in line physically and mentally. And when I lost my grandfather, a lot of me left. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why I felt the way I felt. I didn't know I was going through what I was going through until things really, really, really started to spiral.
So would you say you went through a depressed state? I mean, I'm sure you didn't think about the word depression, but looking back on it, do you feel like you were going through depression?
Of course. Of course. And just looking back, hindsight is always 2020, right? So hindsight is 2020. So being able to go back and look at it, I know when it started. I could tell the change in me, doing things that were out of character to make myself happy or to feel happy on the outside when most of my journey most of the pain was coming from the inside.
So did you do anything? I mean, did you seek help? Did you talk to anybody about this, or did anybody identify that you were going through this?
Well, personally, the culture that I grew up in, it's kind of taboo to if you're not physically hurt to act hurt.
Right.
But I can speak on the University of Alabama and Coach Saban and the people there recognizing that I was going through something, and also giving me the professionals there to help me with those problems. At that time, I thought speaking to a psychiatrist about your pain and the things that you're going through, I didn't think it was very popular. I didn't think it could help you. But luckily I had people there that cared enough and showed enough compassion that got me the help and started to give me the help that I needed to grow back into the person that I was meant to be.
But going again through this thread of that timeline, when you were going through the pain and you were doing things that were not the norm for you and your character, you've spoken publicly about what happened in June of 2008. Could you share with us, what led to that and what were the ramifications?
I know that Coach Saban always talks about that we have choices and decisions and cause and effect. Having my grandfather there my entire life, I was afraid to, I didn't make the bad choices. I didn't hang with the wrong crowd. I didn't make irrational decisions because I had someone there physically to stop me, physically to catch me from making those mistakes. When my grandfather died, I didn't have someone per se in the person to stop me and grab a hold of me like he used to. So I started to reach out to anybody, reach out to different areas and started hanging in the wrong neighborhoods, wrong crowds, and started to peddle stuff that I had never done before. And it cost me a lot. It cost me a lot of time. It cost me a lot of
what happened?
heart.
What happened specifically? Was there one event that led to, that led to imprisonment?
I think it's a snowball effect of making the wrong decision. Because at one point in time, I wouldn't go to certain places. I wouldn't hang in certain places. I had a fence built up to keep myself from making those choices. And that led to, hey, I'm gonna hang out in this place. And from hanging out in this place led to me meeting the wrong people. And
right.
When I met the wrong people, I started to, so it's a snowball effect from just making that first wrong choice, but it led to me, I want to getting a 15-year sentence with 1 year to split, 1 year time to serve in prison. And, in that time, I was prepared for it mentally, physically, and spiritually also. It was very, very tough, but it made me realize my actions and my decisions don't affect just me. They affect everybody around me, right?
Right.
So I didn't just have to go through that, but my team had to go through it. My mother had to go through it. My son, I had just had a son. His name is Jimmy Johns Jr. You know, so he had to go through it. But through it all, I made the decision to make it that he never knew about. To turn the leaf, and I think that having someone strong in your corner, having Coach Saban there to protect me, to never turn his back, to always support me in everything that I did. He's the first person to show me compassion.
Yeah, we were very fortunate for that. Well, look, I know it's a painful memory, and so I appreciate you sharing that. Let me ask you this. I mean, this is obviously a 2020 hindsight, which you just referred to. If you had to talk to, go back in time and talk to Jimmy at 21, what would you say to him?
Listen, pay attention. Because it was always signs there, and take the help. Take help. I had help offered to me to where I was able to go talk to people about the issues that I was going through, about the death of my grandfather, about being depressed. And I didn't necessarily take it well until later on into it, which was too late, So I would tell myself, just be able to try to learn from the mistakes of others instead of having to go through it yourself.
You mentioned earlier your son Jimmy John Jr.'s. I understand he's a talented linebacker at your alma mater, Brookhaven. He's in a different generation, right? I mean, it's a different world from when you played. Certainly, even back further when I played. I know you recognize it because of your own journey in terms of being sensitive and insightful for what an athlete goes through, right? And again, with this generation, it's different than yours. What kind of message do you convey to him in terms of trying to avoid some of the decisions you made later on when you were at Alabama?
You parent until kids are grown. There's no age limit in that. In my community, my culture, it's kind of a red rule when guys turn 18 are grown, when girls turn 21 are grown, and I think that adults become adults mentally, So I try to advance my son, not only physically, working him out physically and training him physically, but also just mentally, taking them different places, taking them outside of the country, getting them a passport, letting them understand what customs are, teaching them how to navigate through the airport. I want them to understand that, there's a different world. There's several different nations. And I want them to understand that it's life outside of America, and that, we live here, and it's a privilege to live here. When we go to other places, we see the struggles that they struggle, and the standards of living are just different, and here
right
at home, we got an opportunity to grow past whatever our father is, In some countries, if your father is a farmer, that's what you're going to be, But here in our country, we have an opportunity to be whatever we want to be. And, I want my son to understand that. So it's not so much of a physical thing with him, like it was with me. I want him to grow mentally. So he's very prepared mentally for life. And I think that's where the gap was with me. So each generation has to get better, and it's not so much as him playing football, but him using his talent to get to a better education.
How do you manage the word on the street that he might be a better football player than you were in your prime?
I commend it. I want them to be better than me. I want my kids to be better than me.
Yeah.
I want them, because what are we here for? I asked Coach Saban one time. I walked up to him, and we got a great relationship. And I said, Coach, 50 years after you're gone and you come back, if you can come back, what message would you want people to have about you?
Question.
And his answer was that he made the people around him better, the people in his life better. So I kind of live by that also. It's not just about me, but I want them to grow. I want them to be better than I was at his age. I know he's more mature than I was at his age. And I see that throughout the town. People come up to us all the time or walk up to me and tell me how good my son is and how respectable he is and, his
Right.
manners. And, that's the most important thing. Football is just a vessel. It's a vessel for to get us farther in life, right? I talk to him all the time. I'm 36 years old. I turned 36 in June. And, son, if you play ball 10 years, if you graduate when you're 23, 22, you'll be 32, 33 years old. And that's a great career in the NFL. But you got so much life after that, and that's what we're trying to prepare for. Not just
Football, not just football, right?
But life after football.
Right. Oh, that's you're a good dad. That's good advisement. That's good parenting. Let me go to your, if you don't mind, let me just go backwards a little bit for, going through the hardship and then, coming back up, getting back on your feet. You came out of prison in 2011. How were you mentally coming out of there and going back into normal civilian life?
So I wasn't prepared for life. I was prepared to, get over anything that I had been through. So Coach Saban has the 24-hour rule. That's when we lose a draw. You got 24 hours to celebrate it, and then it's on to the next thing. And I live life like that. Sometimes it gets me in trouble because, I don't spend enough time in my emotions. But, I was prepared to attack life, attack life head on. It was the growing into a man that I needed to do. Because you play a game for your entire life that's built off of emotions. It's strategy, but it's a lot of emotion that's built in it. And in life, it's not a lot of emotion in business, right?
Right.
It's a lot of strategy. So, I was there physically. Came out of prison, and I became a car salesman, and I sold 20 cars a month for almost 10 years straight.
Wow.
That wasn't a problem to readjust to have money in life, but it was the adapting to life and growing into a man that I wasn't prepared for. What we failed to realize is every Saturday we turn on that TV screen and we see those football players, the college football players out there. We yell and we root for them, but we don't realize that they're 18 and 23-year-old kids or 24-year-old kids. So they're still babies, and that time where they're playing football from 18 to 24 is in real life for the guys that's not playing football, they're actually maturing into man, getting into the workforce and getting into the work field. So if you spend that time still playing, you're spending that time still playing football, where are you going mentally? And how are you prepared mentally to develop into a man? So you either have to do it prior to getting to college, or you're going to get a late start afterwards, right?
Right.
And you can't do it prior to college unless you have an example, a good example, right? The culture that I grew up in is not too many positive, it wasn't too many positive role models that you saw that were business people. Most of your positive role models were athletes or were in some kind of entertainment, singers. But your everyday dad that went and worked 12 hours, he wasn't a rock star in my neighborhood, and that's sad to say. But we need to make that a norm, because that's one thing. That's about what 95 or 99% of people are going to do. You're going to have a regular, 9 to 5 and go get it. And a lot of my friends that have made it to the NFL after the league, you have to have you gotta have a way to support yourself. You got to deal with people in the public.
People that have gone through a depression disorder, and a true depression disorder, as you know, is treatable. It's not curable, right? So with that in mind, and you've got a great positive attitude. You've learned all these lessons. You were very fortunate to have Coach Saban in your life, and continue to have Coach Saban in your life. But on the lines of, you know that you can be prone to the depression side, and having been through it, what do you do to keep yourself balanced today? I mean, how do you balance the pressures of getting your degree while you're working, while you're supporting a family, while you're being a good husband, while you're being a good father and a mentor? How do you balance yourself? How do you keep yourself upstairs, between the ears? Okay.
Oh, you gotta be mentally tough. But I've got a great support team. My wife is there for me. My kids are there for me. When I spoke earlier, I think Coach Saban never took the university, or me coming back to the university, away from me, because I need it. Being able to go back to the university, being around Ginger, being around the athletic staff, Jeff and Ashley, and meeting the coaches, and just being a part of that culture, to have that is in itself something that keeps me going. But day to day, it's providing for my family, having that challenge right there, and not to say that I still don't have episodes, because there are days that I get up and I don't feel like going. I don't feel like getting it. We joked about it earlier that the days that it's gloomy, or that the sun is not out, or
right,
it's raining, or I don't feel good. And I feel that that drowsiness about me. But being able to have a great support team around me. My support team knows me in and out, and try to speak me through the time that I don't recognize, that I'm feeling a certain way, or I'm going through a certain thing, because life in itself is a roller coaster. Nobody in life has it perfect. I promise you. I've got friends that have millions of dollars, and every day that they wake up, they have to find a way to keep it, right?
Yeah, money doesn't buy happiness. The money doesn't buy happiness, right? And
it doesn't buy happiness. Right. So I think the great thing for me is coming up in a family where it was 10 miles to the closest store, so we had to share. We had to learn the seasons, and know when blackberries were coming, and know when the plum season was, and we knew how to catfish, and we knew how to brill fish and bag fish, and we knew how to to work the land. So we got happiness by loving on each other, and it didn't come from money.
That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. I mean, that's a lesson in itself to a lot of people, especially the modern generation, where they live on their phone, right? I mean, life is here, and I think it speaks a lot to you, Jimmy, that coming through that journey where you were in prison, and Coach Saban had to dismiss you, and it was a tough time, but the fact that you have that relationship with him, I don't know if you know, I did a podcast with him, my last podcast with him, and I asked him the question, can you recall somebody, a former player that went through difficult times and came out on the other end? And you were the example, which I think is, look, it speaks to you. It speaks to your character. It speaks to, understanding mental health. With that in mind, again, speaking to our athlete audience or non-athlete audience, how can coaches and teachers, right? How can they impact the life of an athlete or the life of a young person?
With mental illness, it's just what it says, an illness. It's not a disorder, it's an illness. It's just like a sickness, a cold, or being injured, And over time, it gets better. But you got to work on it. You got to treat it with the right stuff and carry it the right way. And I think that's what coaches do, right? Just an example from Coach Saban is, every time I see that guy, it kind of refills my cup, right? When you can be running low, and he's gonna say something, and he's gonna give you some kind of, give me some kind of, positive energy, or give me something that I need, And the relationship that I got with Coach Saban, it's a personal relationship. It's a one-on-one relationship. Coach Saban really took to me because he knew that, I was a guy that just needed the help, that didn't understand it, and he'll tell you to this day that there's nobody in the world that loved the game more than me. Football, but football wasn't it. It was a mental side of it. It was just country boy, man, coming from blacktop roads and seeing a tar bubble up on a hot day and going jumping in the creek to being at the University of Alabama.
Right.
We talk about it all the time that me and my sister is the first graduation. I mean, first to ever go to college in our family, first generation. So we come from a tight area, tight knit family that just was built off of love and emotion. We didn't have too many outside interferences, and once we got adapted to the big world, the real world, I think we're starting to get it now.
So, I mean, congratulations again. I mean, I'm being very sincere. Being able to go back and graduate in May, that must have been an amazing high for you, going back on campus and getting that degree. I know from talking to Ginger, she saw you, and I don't know if you saw Coach at that time, but she was thrilled for you. I mean, she and I speak frequently. What was the drive to go back and get the degree? I mean, when did you know you wanted to do it? And then how did you do it, given the fact that you had the family and a job and, you had to support everybody?
When I went through my trouble, Coach Saban left that door before me. He said, "Hey, and to the public, he kicked me off. He had to do publicly. But Coach Saban never turned his back, never batted an eye. He's always been in Jimmy John's corner. So he left that door open for me. That whenever I finish my responsibility, then I can still come back. I'm still a part of the team. I'm still a part of the family. And, I took him for his word, because it wasn't just a coach relationship with me. It was a personal relationship. When I changed the defense, I used to watch Coach Saban every day. I used to meet with him on Sundays. I'm sorry. Meet with Coach Saban on Sunday, one-on-one personally, and go over defenses and talk life, So when he told me that I could, I could finish my degree, I believed it. I believed him, and it took a while to get it done. But throughout those years, I was back. I saw him every year. I was in and out of the office. I was at A-Day. I was at ball games. So I still had a university, and just the motivation to say I did it. For my kids, for my family, but most of all for me. Well, I didn't realize that I was depressed, that I still had that on me until I got that degree May the 6th. I've been to 300 or more speaking engagements over 3 states, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana.
Wow.
And, every time I did it, me personally, I thought I was doing it for the people, for the community. But every time I did something, it was me getting a little piece of me back.
Yeah.
And it took all of that.
That's a beautiful thing. It kind of goes to what I was going to ask you next, which is because you're doing all that speaking and like you're doing here, and you have to go because look, it's an inspirational story. It's and I don't know, maybe story is not the right word, right? It's your life, right? It's your life. It's not a story. It's your life. But at some point, because you have to go backwards to talk about your life because you went through those pain points and you kind of have to relive them. And I understand this personally, and I do speak about this, that it's really important to stay in the present, right? To be here now with your mind, as opposed to looking backwards and the mistakes you made, and you can't undo them, right? You can't control it. You can't do it. You just learn. So are you there? Can you stay in the present?
So, well, I realized something a long time ago. We can do a visual right now. You can close your eyes right now and, think about any kind of trauma, or just think about getting hit in the knee with anything,
Right.
And your body doesn't know that, your mind doesn't know the difference. Right? Your body does. Your body don't feel it, but your mind, it goes through that trauma. Every time you go back to a trauma situation, it's actually reliving. So to stay mentally healthy, you can't live in the past.
Right.
You can't. You can't. You can't. Just, you can't crucify yourself every day.
You can't dwell on it. You can't dwell on it, right? Yeah.
Because
but you do know, and you should be proud of this. I mean, you overcame that. You know that you can face adversity because you've done. I mean, I'm talking about the positive aspects of this, right? You did it. You overcame it. You faced the adversity. You learned how to achieve new goals to come out of that. And focus and determine what's important in your life. And with all that in mind, and now that you've got this new hard-earned degree, what is your path going forward? I mean, what do you want to do with all that?
Well,
that's a heavy question, I know.
Of course you want to continue to grow. I want to continue to, I want to continue to grow, and not to go back, but earlier, well, God give his toughest warriors his toughest mission, So I think that by me going through what I went through, I was able to save a generation. I was able to save my son from, till now, save my son and save a lot of people from going through it. I think he built me strong, so because I can handle it, and a lot of people got those. I mean, some people have those gifts. Everybody has a different gift. So I think that's one of mine. Persevere to understand that adversity is going to come every day, and that we can't live in it. We just got to push through it.
Well, you've mentioned some mentors, and But with this life journey at the age of 36, who has inspired you the most in your life?
My mom. My mom, she was raised in the area in the deep south. She was married at 16 years old and had 5 kids. She dropped out of high school in 9th grade. She's raised all of us. All of us have great jobs. And my mom went back to college, and she had 3 degrees now. One's in welding.
Wow.
To see her do that, she served people her whole life. She told me my nickname was Tootie. She said, Tootie, I want you to know something, son. She said, there's good black folk in the world and there's bad black folk. And there's good white folk and there's bad white folk. She said, treat people all the same, And, that lesson right there is probably why I'm still able to go back to the university, because I never treated anybody bad. I never did anybody wrong. She taught me to do right, never taking people. And that we're going to make bad decisions, and people forgive bad decisions. But they don't, people don't like bad people,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I was never a bad seed. I always loved people, fun, would help anybody, would give anybody a shot on my back. And I learned that lesson from my mom, so yeah, she's one of the most inspirational people in my life. Outside of that, Coach Saban, of course. I live by lessons every day, and my wife and my family.
Yeah, that's you're very fortunate. You're very fortunate to have that love and that support from your family and your mom in particular that you just mentioned, and these coaches, and then you mentioned it earlier, your wife and your children. Well, I think this has been a great conversation. And I appreciate your willingness to talk about what you've been through and where you are now, which is, I think, as important, if not more important. But this purpose here is to talk more about it, to get people to understand that competitive, high achieving athletes, where everybody puts up on a pedestal and has all this adulation, that they're people too, and you go through trials and tribulations. And talking about this, Jimmy, you're helping remove the stigma that's associated with this. And the more that goes down, the quicker people can go out there and get treated and get back into their life, right? Whether it's sports or, classroom or their job, right? No different than the knee discussion you and I had earlier. I'd like to tell you, you're just by doing what you're doing here, and I know you speak at other places, you're helping people. You're helping these people, and that's a beautiful thing. I want to thank all of our followers here at Athletes OnBalance, and please stay tuned for more episodes coming soon. Take care, everyone. I'm Walt Norley, and this is Athletes OnBalance.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Athletes OnBalance. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please follow us on your preferred podcast app to catch our next episode. Join our community by sharing with an athlete, mental health care provider, or coach in your circle.